Hello and welcome to Africa Update on Trust TV. It's another exciting week for us to tell you what's happening on the African continent. And this week, we're going to be delving into a very, very serious issue, the issue of climate change and its impact on the African continent. And of course, we have more information and other things happening on our great continent. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And this is Africa Update on Trust TV. And I am your host, Chiamaka Nwafor. Now, havoc across East Africa. Weeks of heavy rain due to seasonal monsoons have led to flooding, deaths and displacement in several East African countries, including Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda and Somalia. The long rains, as they are known, occur annually from March to May. Kenya and Tanzania are the countries most affected by the monsoon rains, with the situation also exacerbated by Cyclone Hidaya in early May. Years of drought which hardened the soil have also compounded the effect of the rains, increasing the impact of the flooding. River levels are extremely high and rain risks continue at least through June in the coastal areas and a couple of weeks longer in the western region. Now let's take a look at some stories from Kenya and Tanzania.
Flooding in Tanzania caused by weeks of heavy rain has killed 155 people and affected more than 200,000 others, the Prime Minister said Thursday. Kassim Majaliwa told Parliament that the El Niño climate pattern has worsened the ongoing rainy season and caused the closing of schools as well as flooding and destroyed roads, bridges and railways. The Prime Minister warned those living in low-lying areas to move to higher ground. He also urged district officials to ensure that provisions meant for those whose homes were washed away effectively go to them. The new toll is more than double the number of deaths reported 2 weeks ago as the amount of rainfall increases, especially in the coastal region and the capital, Dar es Salaam. The East African region is experiencing heavy rains, with flooding also reported in neighboring Burundi and Kenya. Past El Niño events in the region led to significant climatic, environmental and socio-economic impacts.
We are stranded. I have a garage, since the rain started, it's now 3 weeks. My vehicles are here, they have stuck. I have nothing to eat.
After some of the worst flooding in its history, Kenya has a new challenge on its hands: cholera. The East African country's health ministry announced Tuesday that it was launching an emergency response to stop a cholera outbreak in which 44 cases have so far been confirmed. The outbreak was confirmed in the Tana River, one of the worst affected by flooding. Authorities say floodwaters have contaminated clean water sources, leading to a shortage of drinking water. Water cuts have been reported in the capital Nairobi too, as demand has overwhelmed existing treatment plants. The city's plants have a maximum production capacity of 525 million litres per day, but are facing a significant demand of 900 million litres. Cholera is transmitted through the ingestion of contaminated food or water.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, that was the video showing us what's happening in East Africa, Tanzania and Kenya precisely with the flooding and climate change. Now, to discuss more, delve into this issue, with me in the studio is Marcos Idoko, a geomatics engineer. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Africa Update today. I know earlier while we were having a conversation before the show, I asked what is a geomatics engineer, and explained that, you know, someone who's able to give more insights just beyond data, but more insight to what's happening, what the data means, and all that. And now, so Marcus, first of all, let's talk about climate change. It's a big issue, and for a very, very, very long time, a lot of people didn't agree or don't agree that there was something like climate change. But at least here in Nigeria, we're going to start agreeing, because we can say that the weather has been extremely hot. We had a long heat wave that's taken over the country, you know, and then the rains. This is May, and yet we're still begging for the rains to start falling. Now, could you just give us, you know, an overview of climate change generally in Africa?
Chiamaka, thank you for having me. Climate change is a heated issue, and it's been on the front burner for some times now, because the evidence are coming glaring by what we are seeing around the world. Climate change is a result of increase in temperature in the system, and this is caused by what we call greenhouse effect. The accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has disallowed temperature to rise and allow the cooling system, and as a result, the whole atmosphere becomes heated, and this leads to increase in temperature. And when there is increase in temperature, there is change in atmospheric pressure, which leads to irregular weather system. And this brings about this change in rainfall pattern. It becomes excessive sometimes, and it becomes reduced sometimes. It depends on what the system holds. For example, what we are having right now, the El Nino issue.
Yes, well, I was going to get to that, but since you're there, let's just go.
So because of the human activity, we have this increase in temperature, and it has continued to exacerbate. During the global effort to reduce it to at least 1.5 degrees Celsius pre-industrial period, we've not been able to achieve it. The temperature keeps rising. We are almost going to 2-point-something degrees Celsius. And this is very serious if it is not checked, and the impact of the climate change will continue to be felt, like what we are having all over the world, extreme weather situation, so much rainfall and the likes.
So you mentioned El Nino effect or phenomenon. I would like for you to explain what that is, you know, exactly. As I was reading up, it was like, you know, when there's extreme weather happening on this side or on that side. So, you know, tell us more about that.
Okay, El Nino is a natural climatic phenomenon, and it's global. It controls the global wind system. When we have El Nino, it means there is increase in the temperature over East and Central Pacific Ocean. And when that happens, usually there is increase in uplift of moisture into the atmosphere that leads to excessive rainfall in some part of Africa, like what we are experiencing right now. Like what happened in 2011, there was El Nino, there was a lot of rainfall in other places, but there was drought in the Horn of Africa. You see, it could bring a lot of rain in some places and takes away rain in some other places, which leads to drought. This is the situation that is happening right now. We have El Nino that is almost facing out right now. It's been there, and that is why we have this extreme temperature that now, coupled with the rise in temperature through human activity, it exacerbates the effect of climate change.
Okay, so now let's hone in on East Africa.
Okay.
What can we say are the factors that are contributing to this severe flooding in that part of the continent?
Well,
especially during this annual monsoon rainfall.
Well, the climate change itself is there, but the real factors that contributed to what is happening in East Africa right now is the excessive rainfall that has come as a result of El Nino and climate change itself, and poor drainage system, and also the lack of awareness of people to contribute towards mitigating, or the lack of government's effort to ensure that people, are resilient when these things happen. You can see the number of deaths. We don't have early warning system, and nobody is doing anything about it, and this needs to be done. So the excessive rainfall, when it comes, this can be controlled to some extent by letting people know about it on time. And we have technologies abound. The technology abounds, and they are there and cheap and affordable. If a flood or flash flood is about to happen, there are systems that will give you a warning, and an alarm will be made, and everybody will be made aware to maybe go to upper land. And look at what happened in East Africa. This is happening on an elevation of more than 1,600 meter above sea level. You see, before this rain got there, the flood got there, there should have been ample chance for people to evacuate, but nothing was done. But I think in some news report I heard that the meteorological department gave warning, but awareness was not made. So we need a lot to be done in this area, including the people that were affected themselves. It's a very mixed, problem.
You mentioned drainage, clearing of drainage, but we see that Rwanda is on that list of people that are affected. Well, yes, there's not so much news. So I will take it that due to their cleanliness, they didn't have so much impact on the flood, didn't have so much impact on them.
I'm sure Rwanda, I think, is one of the fast-growing economy in Africa. They are doing very well. They have their system well structured, and I'm sure they have improved drainage system. I know about Rwanda, even farmers are taken care of by ambulance. When they go to the farm, ambulance go with them in case there are problems. Why wouldn't they take care of their drainage system? And I'm sure the citizens themselves will be careful enough not to dump waste, cause clogging in the drainage system like they do in other parts of the countries. Like what happened in Kenya, part of it is the clogging of the drainage system because of throwing of debris, waste into the drainage system. I'm sure that must have contributed to what happened in Rwanda.
Okay, so now let's go to Cyclone Hidaya. Now, I don't know, I think the last time I heard of a cyclone or a hurricane or a typhoon or something in that category was when it came all the way from the west and hit Mozambique and Madagascar. That was, I think, in 2020, 2021, thereabout, and now we're having this happening right here in Africa. Now, first, how was it? This, I'm sure this is brought about by climate change, most likely. And how has that affected, really, what's happening in the East African area?
Well, what has happened in East Africa might not be described as cyclone, but it's an extreme weather situation. In West Africa, we call some line squall, thunderstorm, and the rest of them. It hasn't gone to that category of cyclone. But what we are experiencing in East Africa is actually the extreme weather situation, the irregular rainfall. For example, in East Africa, they should, under normal circumstances, have their onset rainfall at a particular time. But this onset perhaps may have shifted and have started earlier. And within the period of 1 month, maybe they expect about 250 millimeter rainfall. But within that short time of 1 month, they had over 500 millimeter. So much that the infiltration can accommodate and the drainage system can accommodate. It went beyond what the natural system can accommodate. That is why we had this issue. I think it's about lack of preparation, lack of planning, and most times our urban planners are no longer functional. So
you mentioned drought earlier. So how has the years of preceding drought, in the region affected the soil's ability to absorb water and exacerbated the flooding?
Well, drought is when we don't have enough rainfall. And rainfall is a product of a system built over this ocean that travels over land and dissipates this when as it moves. The drought is a situation where the water needed for crop, water needed for livestock is limited. But talking about infiltration when it rains, that is a different scenario. If it rains, the natural environment requires that the water infiltrate and reduces overland flow. And what is responsible for that is the vegetation cover. When you have so much spaces or surfaces that does not allow, or space that does not allow infiltration of water, what do you expect? If you have vegetation which allows infiltration, it's natural that water seeps into the ground and feeds the groundwater, and that is natural. But when everywhere is maybe covered with asphalt, concrete, maybe roofing sheets, we have limited space for water to go into the soil, and that leaves all with overland flow and excess water that is responsible for flooding situation.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned something about funds. So now let's take a look at a video from COP28 last year, where President of Kenya, William Ruto, spoke about funding.
We cannot afford to neglect the immense potential or ignore the pressing needs of a continent on the cusp of transformative growth. Turning Africa into a green powerhouse is not just essential for the continent, it is also vital for global industrialization, decarbonization. Going forward, clear, actionable roadmaps for implementations are required. In turn, these call for a unified global effort to mobilize the necessary capital for both development and climate action.
Now that was the President of Kenya, William Ruto, speaking at COP28 in Dubai, and on funding actually for climate change for countries that, actually contribute little to climate change. Now, preparing for this program, you get to find out that Africa contributes very little to the climate change problem, but Africa is the one most affected by the climate change program. What do you make of that conversation, seeing as he just said that last year, and now this year his country is most hit?
That's interesting. Ruto was so vocal about it, about this funding that we require in Africa, and he mentioned it clearly, is climate injustice. We are the one suffering the bulk of the impact. The people responsible for it are not doing enough. So why can't we think about getting this fund to become effective, and for people who are suffering this impacts to begin to enjoy some leverage to overcome, to become resilient? And this is what they call loss and damage fund. He mentioned it. Loss and damage fund is not an aid. Is the money meant for us is justified to ensure that we are not, put in a place of injustice.
Okay.
And this has to be done. And I'm happy it has happened in Kenya. I don't know what Ruto is thinking, and I don't know what he is doing. That fund, I'm sure they started it. Some countries contributed during the COP28. I don't know how that money is going to be managed, and we are waiting for it. Okay,
so let's wrap this conversation up. Let's come back home. Let's come back to Nigeria. Now, the outlook for flood for Nigeria for 2024, although no flood has happened yet, states that about 31 states are at high risk, and about 36 states for the FCT have moderate flooding. Now, what do you make of that, and how can we stop this? In 1 minute, just let's tie that up.
Yeah, I don't know. We say this is a doom, maybe prophet of doom, but this is what the science is saying, This is what the NAMET is saying, the data they have, the information they have. Because of the El Nino that is passing, we should expect heavy rainfall. And that is the situation. And we need to prepare for it. Early warning system. We should channel resources to make people aware of the danger. Advocacy should be there to let people prepare. Everybody's responsible. Action or inaction could cause us a lot of problem. Okay. So we need to do the right thing. Okay. And it's very, very indispensable, and we have to start it. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Marcus Idogo, for joining us on Africa Update today to discuss the issue of climate change in Africa. It's been quite an insightful and educative time with you. Now, when we come back, we'll be looking at the visit of Prince Harry and Meghan in Nigeria ahead of the Invictus Game and, of course, the Chad presidential election that just took place. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. It's still Africa Update on Trust TV. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan have arrived in Nigeria to support the Invictus Games and also help wounded veterans, including Nigerian soldiers in the 14-year battle against extremists. Invited by the military, the royal couple landed in Abuja early Friday, 10th May, according to Defense spokesman Brigadier General Tukru Gusau. Now, Harry and Meghan will be meeting with wounded soldiers and their families, and what Nigerian officials have said is a show of support to improve the soldiers' morale and well-being. Harry served in Afghanistan as an Apache helicopter co-pilot gunner, after which he founded the Invictus Games in 2014 to offer wounded veterans and service members the challenge of competing in sports events similar to the Paralympics. And over in Chad, its military leader, Mohamed Debi Itno, was declared the winner of this week's presidential election, according to provisional results released on Thursday. Now, the results were contested by his main rival, Prime Minister Success Masra.
We as a united people owe this victory to you. The people placed us firmly in the lead from the first round, backed by verifiable counts from over 90% of the ballot boxes, validating a decisive win in the first round, a triumphant of change over the status quo of hope over the past.
And over in Zimbabwe, its parliament has started nationwide consultations after the cabinet in February agreed to abolish the death penalty to conform with international standards. Colombo's Mavhunga has the story from a public hearing in Bindura, Zimbabwe. Then Columbus is a reporter of the Voice of America.
Bindura, Zimbabwe, a crime-riddled mining town about 100 kilometers from the capital Harare and the site of a recent public hearing on the death penalty. Zimbabwe's parliament hopes citizens will support the bill abolishing the death penalty for crimes such as aggravated murder and treason. Energy Mutodi heads the parliament's Justice Committee, which is leading the hearings.
The people have spoken. They are coming up with different views. Some are for the idea that the death penalty must be removed. Some are saying it must remain in the Constitution as a deterrent measure.
Those against the death penalty, like Tinei Mashone, say the punishment is too harsh and archaic.
If you look at our Constitution, it protects women from the death sentence. But we are pushing for equality. That is the basis of constitutionalism and democracy. But there is a bias there. So I am in support of the new bill. It should pass so that we can correct people. We cannot solve violence with violence.
Amnesty International says it hopes Zimbabweans support the proposed law to end the death sentence.
Once it's done, it's done. And if someone is wrongly accused, then we cannot then take that life back. Two, we are saying this law is something that is a colonial relic that came with the white colonialists, and they were using the death penalty to oppress the black majority. So we are saying, why are we still inheriting something that was being used against us as the black majority?
Some participants at the hearing said they are seeing people who killed their relatives walking scot-free. Some Zimbabweans called for imposing the death sentence on rapists and those who commit violent crimes like robbery.
I disagree.
I disagree, because some are pardoned after serving 5 years and released. Right now, I see the person who killed my brother walking freely. What should I do? If there is no hangman, you can hire me.
The last execution in Zimbabwe took place in 2005, and the death penalty opponent, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, last month commuted the death row sentences for some prisoners to that of life imprisonment.
And that's so much we have for you on Africa Update today. Now, do not forget, you've heard everything that's been spoken about today about climate change. Please clean your drainages. Make sure everywhere around you is clean. Do your part to avert and minimize the effects of climate change around you and the people that stay with you. And that's the size of our package on Africa Update today. For more of our programs, news and documentary, please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I'm your host, Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.